You know that one story about Santa Claus? You know the one where he's flying around Christmas Eve with presents to deliver and an evil witch flies up on her broomstick, traps Santa in a jar and runs back to her castle for some unknown reason. And then there's that kid who finds Santa's red suit and puts it on and travels through towns and churches and forests and castles, collecting candy canes and presents to rescue Santa, all because a fairy that looks straight out of Fern Gully shows up to tell the kid he has to help Santa? I know, it's a super popular Christmas story. Or not. But it is the plot of Santa Claus Jr., which is definitely not about Santa's kid taking up the Santa mantle. The Junior refers to the fact that a random kid playing a Game Boy finds Santa's suit and travels to rescue Santa. Aside from the flimsy plot, there is actually a lot to talk about in this Game Boy Color Christmas game, Santa Claus Jr. I'm the Play It Again pastor, and I've been searching for the most Christmassy retro video game or levels of them all. And perhaps I have stumbled upon it in the 2001 Game Boy Color game, Santa Claus Jr. While Daze Before Christmas for Sega Genesis featured Santa Claus as the main protagonist, this game finds a kid named Nick picking up the Santa suit and making his way through each level to a portal which moves him to the next stage. The controls here are simple. You can move Nick around with the direction pad, jump, hang on to ledges before pulling yourself up, and that's about it. There are also the typical ladders and ropes you can climb up or down here. And right off the bat, Nick's walk, it is extremely slow, and there were so many times I wished that I could have a run with a B kind of control, but no such Christmas luck. Instead, Nick meanders through each level, bouncing on platforms, balloons, and hanging onto wires, all in search of that portal that will move him along. This is one of those games where it's a little hard to tell what exactly counts as a platform and what doesn't. There were times I thought a branch or a plank of wood was a platform, but it ended up being nothing at all. There are also the typical chasms and spikes Nick can fall into or onto here. Christmas trees throughout the level count as a checkpoint when you lose a life. This comes in handy in the later levels, which are almost a constant barrage of enemies, pits, and spikes. Most enemies here you can jump on and cause to vanish in a puff of sparks, but some enemies can't be taken out at all. Throughout the levels, you find candy canes, which act as coins. Once you collect 25 of them, you'll gain an extra life, which definitely comes in handy. There are also hearts in each level that restore your health bar completely, and presents are scattered around, dropped when Santa was claw-snapped by the witch. The presents are counted up at the very end of the game as a sort of final score. Each level also contains hidden areas that can only be found by bumping into them. Nick will vanish and be taken to a bonus area filled with extra lives, candy canes, presents, and health. You usually have about 10 to 25 seconds to collect everything before you're booted back out to the main level. The worlds here are varied enough and make sense for the progression of the game. You start at Nick's house, then move to the roofs of the town, then make your way to the church roof and then inside the church before moving to the forest and finally making your way to the witch's castle. Okay, so let's talk a second about the witch's castle. You start outside the castle, which suddenly takes this game from a Christmassy one to a Halloween game. Ghosts are floating around, mummies are chasing you, evil pumpkins are bouncing around, and skulls and frogs come bounding after you. Evil faces in the background snarl at Nick and bats flap constantly everywhere. Once you move inside the castle, the walls are covered with literal eyeballs watching you play. Yes, I said eyeballs watching you. This whole sequence really reminded me of that old Scooby-Doo movie, Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School. If you've seen it, you know. Finally, you face down the witch who takes multiple hits on the head to defeat. She throws all kinds of projectiles at Nick as she flies around on her broom, and the Cheshire Cat face grins at you creepily in the background. Santa is stuck in the jar until you defeat the witch and release him, finishing the game. I've got to say, Santa Claus Jr. is definitely a weird game, and it definitely hits all the Christmas markers, along with the Halloween ones, I guess. This is a 100% Christmassy game, But like Daze Before Christmas, I feel as though it's only worth playing if you're a fan of platformers that take about an hour to complete, and if you're really into Christmas. Then you'll have a great time. But if you're only casually into platformers, then there are much better ones out there to play. I have to say, I enjoyed playing this game, but I'm a platformer superfan. Only one more sleep until Christmas, as Kermit the Frog always says, so there's only one more retro Christmassy level I've got to play before Christmas ends. Until then, watch the skies, collect those candy canes, and hope that you too can keep Santa safe from evil.